I mean, when is this rather insane situation going to end?
Well, it is rather insane. You have a situation where the vast majority of Calgarians agree with my point of view on this. Every poll has shown that. We have the developers, the builders, the anti-poverty organizations, the students, the Catholic Church, most community associations agreeing with my point of view on this. Yet, probably the only 8 people left in the city who disagree sit on council. That's obviously not true. There's a few others. But this has been a challenge, and I think that many members of council have sort of hardened on this because it's just a political thing for them. Never mind that we approve well over 85% of these things that come before us. They take almost 20% of all council time. So if they're worried about the meetings being too long, this is actually how to reduce them. Every other city in the country has done this already. So there's a really easy solution here. That said, council continues to tie itself in knots trying to find a compromise instead of looking to the easy solution. I have supported every compromise so far, regardless of what side of the table it comes from, but we haven't been able to get to 8. So this council can either fix this forever, or they can just wait for a new council to do it.
Do you think it'll be much of an election issue?
It could be,
as it was in 2010?
It could be, except for the fact that everyone I know who's running agrees with me on it. So, except of course for Councillor Chabot. So we'll see, because even when you look at the people running in the various wards, in Ward 11, for example, you've got sort of very right, very centrist, all of whom agree on secondary suites. So we'll see what happens.
Is this the only thing left on the list from 2010?
There are 2 things left. The other is campaign finance reform. I have to tell you, I spiked that one myself because the province was finally ready to move this year, but it was too close to the election, and I didn't think it was fair that incumbents had been raising money for 3 years under one system, and challengers would have to raise money under another system. But I did ask the province to move very, very quickly, very early in 2018, regardless of whether I'm in this chair or not, to make that change, and we'll get that one done.
What would be a compromise? I know there's been many compromises, but what's the easiest compromise to accept? Is it to just have all these applications go to some other city group to be dealt with rather than by council?
That's actually the solution, right? The solution is very, very simple. It is that administration has a checklist. They decide whether these things meet criteria or not. By the way, everyone that comes to council has met administration's criteria. And they just make the decision, and in some cases you need a development permit that the neighbors can appeal, in some cases you don't. It's not rocket science. Every other city in the country has done it already. And we just need to get our heads around it.
Why do you think these people are opposing it, though? Because you see these things, and there's always 2 or 3, no matter what.
There's always one.
There's always one. Stevenson. But even some of the other ones, which seem
they move back and forth.
Even the one with the woman crying, the last one last night. Even that was not a unanimous vote.
It's council's nature, human nature. I shouldn't say just council. That when something is very small and very simple, we tend to zero in. So there was one in Rocky Ridge today, which had tons of parking. But the ward councillor said, I drove by there recently and there wasn't any parking. So it failed. As a result of that, when we're doing huge things like ASPs that impact thousands and thousands of people, we don't narrow in on whether the right turn on this street is a good right turn or not. We just sort of trust that these things work. But on secondary suites, because they're so tiny, it's human nature to start looking at the tiny aspect and to zoom in a very specific way. In reality, do these impact people's lives in a big way? No. We had one in Collingwood yesterday where the people were it failed on a tie, where the people were very concerned about traffic on their street. Is one tenant on one of the 47 houses on their street going to make any difference to traffic? No. But it's human nature, and a lot of councillors fall for the temptation to really zero in on these things and use them as an excuse to talk about every issue on that particular street.
What you did this morning with lifting the development permits for businesses.
Yes, this is a very big deal.
How big an incentive is that for someone wanting to set up an operation in a building?
This is a huge deal. This is time, money, and red tape. So it really is the city being very, very responsive to the economic conditions and saying, you know what? There is red tape here that we can get rid of. So this will make it much, much easier for new kinds of businesses, particularly retail and commercial businesses, to set up downtown. It saves them a ton of time, a ton of hassle, and a ton of red tape. So it's a real incentive for people to participate in the center city.
Is it that much of a difference that it could mean the survival of a business?
No, it probably won't mean survival, but it will mean businesses looking at locations in a different way. You know, the rents have gone down, the taxes have gone down in the center city, and this is a little additional, not a little, pretty big additional incentive that says, look, you want to convert a restaurant into a clothing store, we're going to make it very easy for you.
Except for nightclubs.
Except for nightclubs. What were the restrictions? Nightclubs, payday loans, liquor stores, pawn shops.
I wanted to ask about the taxi lottery.
Yes. I'm so sorry that came out late last night.
Yeah. What's your reaction to how the city handled that whole situation?
Well, I think the city handled the aftermath very, very quickly. It was the city's own audit processes that realized the error, and we very quickly hired experts in the field to tell us how to fix it. So essentially what we're doing is we are doing the draw again with those 5 names included, and we're going to draw 222 times, and if any of those 5 names come out, then they will get an additional license, but the people who have already been awarded licenses get to keep theirs. I think this is the right thing to do. It's very fair, and I'm happy that the city found the error right away, but I am obviously unhappy that this human error existed in the first place, and there are recommendations in the report yesterday to make sure we never do that again.
And why
Weren't there
does it
people-
take that
yeah.
mistake to actually go to a third party for the next lottery?
Well, simply because we were doing fine before, and it's much cheaper to handle it in-house, and we had the expertise in-house. But now that we made an error, the recommendation was really we should use a third party to make sure errors like that don't happen again. We have no evidence that we've ever done that before.
What about the timing of this news release? 8:30 on a Monday night. It was Friday at 4 o'clock not available?
No, that's our fault, because we had the consultant available for right after supper last night, so the minute council voted on it, the news went out, but it just because we had this terrible meeting yesterday, council had to vote on it, and that was the only time slot that worked.
Why did it have to be in camera?
Actually, we released it all publicly, but because there was some legal advice around the recommendations, we had to take the legal advice in camera, but in the end, when we wrote the report, we released it.
Folks, I got to get the mayor to
All
the
right,
next thing.
thanks guys.
Thank you.
Hi,